What up, everybody? It's your boy Phil Risen. Welcome back to the channel. So the Kevin Hart roast. Let's talk about it, man. It happened, I believe, just the other day, either yesterday or the day before, and it's been in the news quite a bit. You know, there are a couple cool things that happened. One thing, Cat Williams, of course, dapped it up with Kevin Hart, which I think is dope, especially because of Cat's viral Shannon Sharp video, obviously. So it's nice to see those two be mature and deal with each other like men. That being said, another thing happened at the roast that is not so good and definitely has some people up in arms, and that is Tony Hinchcliffe's performance and his joke about George Floyd while on stage. Now, let me just say, first and foremost, I think the main problem here is just a cultural difference. You know, black people and white people, we both like roasting. That is for sure. That is a huge thing. I mean, you know, when it comes to white guys, they pretty much created, you know, the stereotypical roasting culture, mainstream roast that comes from Don Rickles, you know, Johnny Carson, all these 1960s Rat Pack guys. You know, they had the stage just like this Kevin Hart roast. So this is definitely their element. Black people, we like to roast too, but it's a little bit more casual. You know what I mean? We'll joke on your clothes, we'll joke on how stupid you are, but there is like a certain line, I think, to certain things. Like when it comes to roast jokes, I feel like they kind of have evolved in the last like 20, 30, 40 years, right? Like when they started with these old guys like, you know, Johnny Carson and Don Rickles and all that type of stuff, Sammy Davis Jr. and everything, they were harsh jokes, but they were just regular jokes. Now I feel like they've evolved because of this whole Joe Rogan cringe humor type stuff that was here even before Tony Hinchcliffe. People more like Opie and Anthony, you know what I mean? They came up in those times, right? That changed roast jokes to be so vile, so fucked up, so offensive that is the fun. It's not necessarily how clever the joke is or how funny it actually is. It's about how twisted and messed up it is to say it to the person, right? And this is where I think black roast people and white roasters kind of lose each other, right? Because black people, we would never really do that. But when you have a white dude at a black dude's roast, shit like this can definitely happen. Now, that's why I feel like, for the most part, if there is a roast of a black person, they try to have a lot of people that the guy knows and this, that, and the third. But Kevin Hart is a very mainstream comedian, right? He's a guy who's been around forever, right? So they probably thought, all right, Kevin, he's dealt with people like Shane Gillis before. He's dealt with this guy. He's dealt with Pete. Whoever the fans of those comedians are, we should get the people that they like instead of people that would traditionally be associated maybe with Kevin Hart. And I think that's why you had the issue of a lot of people saying that this roast as a whole was cool, but it didn't really get better until a lot of the Def Jam people came up and people that were closer to Kevin came up. You know, a lot of people that I know were saying that it was a bit stale when you had certain people like Tony Hinchcliffe, you know, up there, you know, making these jokes. They were funny, but they were just, you know, kind of eh. First off, when it comes to Tony Hinchcliffe and this whole joke thing, I'm not really here to have a debate on whether or not he should have said the joke or if the joke is a good joke or not or whatever, right? I'm a comedian and I don't really feel like comedians should be saying whether or not is a joke is okay to say. It is freedom of speech. It's just one of those things. That being said, I do feel like all of this backlash and everything is completely on Kevin Hart. You know, I don't know if this is his misreading of his own fan base or the people that are helping him behind the scenes, trying to get more of a younger kind of, you know, young Republican MAGA Rogan bro fan base. I don't know. But it just seems like a really dumb idea. Like, Kevin is cool with everybody. He's definitely one of those guys that's super cool with a lot of different comics and kind of go everywhere. I wouldn't be surprised if Kevin Hart has either been on Kill Tony or will eventually be on Kill Tony, especially after something like this. But that being said, his main fan base is still black people. And I feel like the people who have the most reverence for what he does are still black. And you have to cherish that type of stuff. And that doesn't mean like, I'm not saying like black performers just have to cherish black people. I'm saying like whoever you are, whatever your identity is, right? whatever it is that you kind of stand on, which I feel like Kevin Hart has stood on, like kind of blackness, wanting to help black performers, talking about the black community before. Whatever your community is, it could be anything. It could be the punk community. It doesn't have to be race. It could be religion, whatever, right? Animals, whoever, right? You have to kind of do stuff that aligns with that community, if that's really what you're about, if that's always what you're presenting about, and you kind of are that person. I feel like when you don't, or go for people that are completely the antithesis of what you present yourself as, you look bad. You know, like there's a difference between trying something new or going for a new demographic and trying for a demographic that can be a bit more problematic and are kind of the opposite of the people that you already represent, right? Like I feel like that's a little bit of an issue, right? Like you know, I feel like if you're a comic who all you do is care about PETA, you're not going to try and get an audience of meat eaters. So it just seems a little hypocritical for him. That being said, I mean, he's free to do whatever he wants. He's Kevin fucking Hart, and I'm just some random guy. But you know, if he doesn't think about that stuff, he's going to run into a lot more of this. And I think a lot of what the issue is, true at the core, is just people being really out of touch with the people that admire them and consume their content. Comedy at the end of the day is just a job to this guy. I mean, yes, it is art and everything, sure, but it's also just a job. So in a way, these people are his coworkers. We all have like shitty, weird, kind of racist coworkers, right? But we kind of fuck with them in the context of our job, right? So I think that's also a little bit of it too. He's just not paying attention to like, oh, like to me, he's just another comic. But it's like to these other people, they're watching what this other comic is saying, and it makes them very uncomfortable. So to see him associated with Kevin Hart makes people uncomfortable as well. Let's watch a little bit of this video clip and just see what some other people are saying about this whole situation.
Let's roast into another controversy, and this time, George Floyd's family is speaking out. At the Kevin Hart Netflix roast, Tony reportedly made a joke about George Floyd.
He got into a fist fight on a private plane, proof that no matter how much money black people have, they're still just gonna act like ninjas.
That's another thing I will say that is a big part of the outrage of his whole set, is that it's also just not that good, man. You know, black people, white people, we roast differently, sure. All that is very, very true. But I will say, if a joke is funny enough, black people can really take a joke. But if something is just offensive, you know what I mean, and it's just not that funny, we're going to look around like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, there's a part of me envisioning him writing these jokes, and I can see him, and it's just like, you could tell he just wants to say the N-word, so he just made a joke where he could kind of say the N-word. That's the problem here.
Fight. Like Bill Cosby, Hart is a black comedian from Philadelphia, and like Bill Cosby, women don't know when Kevin is inside of them. You've done good, though, Kevin. The black community is so proud of you. Right now, George Floyd is looking up at us all, laughing so hard that he can't breathe.
See, again, the joke isn't funny, but he also fucked up the joke. So it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it. And he's had enough situations where he's been criticized for this exact same thing. You know, the whole Trump rally that he did, where I think he made a joke about like Puerto Rico or something. Then there was like a year or two before where he went on stage and did some crazy rant about like Asian people or something like that. Again, I just truly don't understand why anybody would involve him in anything, especially if you're not in that type of realm of comedy. I understand Shane Gillis, you know, because him and Kevin Hart, they're kind of close, you know, and they have a respect for each other. There's a different thing. But like, you know, Shane, he can mess with Tony because that's kind of where he came up in, you know, that whole like dirtbag Legion of Skanks kind of scene, right? But it's just like Kevin Hart in that just seems weird. It just seems weird, man. And, you know, I'm not the only one who noticed this. Michael Che actually posted something here that shows how tone deaf it is. And it says, let's do a roast celebrating the career of one of the most successful black comics in the last 10 years. I love that. Who should we get to write it? These guys. And this is another thing. Again, it's like, you know, you make a roast show trying to honor somebody, and then you have these dudes who, you know, listen, I actually know all of these guys in the picture actually, and they're really nice guys, and they're great comedians. They're really funny comedians, great writers and stuff. But let's just say they don't have the same reverence and admiration for someone like Kevin Hart to make jokes that are just better, just overall better, you know? And I think that's one of the reasons why like this roast sort of fell flat until you had a lot of Def Jam comics who really know Kev, a lot of, you know, other comics who really know Kev. Then it definitely seemed to do better. Let's just hope that they learn their lesson and they do a little bit better for next year. But let me know what you guys think. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you later. Peace.